Sounds like a cool guy.
Pretty cool guy.
We have a Jon Snow situation arising.
Bit of a Jon Snow situation happening here. Send him to the wall. Fikal. I'm going to fuck up that pronunciation too. I like that even in the Bible, they're like, what does this mean? You can find a way. No matter how hopeless it seems, it's not completely hopeless.
You don't realize perhaps the butterfly effect of how helpful these sacrifices you have made can help everyone in your life. Not just the people closest to you, but the people that even you knew for a little bit and have separated from you.
Do you, sir, have any thoughts on anything that you have just heard of my voice?
All right.
All right, welcome back. Again, this is the second episode we're recording tonight, so no can crack. Maybe we'll do a bit of a compilation of all of the can cracks that we've already done. Can also, yeah, there you go.
ASMR.
There we go.
Okay.
You got some knuckle cracks.
You got all kinds of cracks. That might even be more satisfying than the prime can crack.
There, you can get the hips in there. There you go. There you go.
All right.
All right. Sick. Okay, so now we're going to go over the birth of Isaac.
Sounds like a cool guy.
Pretty cool guy. Okay, so God visits Sarah like he said he would, and she conceives and gives birth to a son when Abraham is 100 years old. They name him Isaac.
Okay.
Abraham circumcised Isaac when he is 8 days old, as God commanded. Sarah said, God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. The child grew and was weaned. Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Then Sarah sees Hagar's son, which is the handmaiden that Sarah offered to Abraham originally to conceive a son when she was still barren, and then she gave birth to Ishmael. Sarah said to Abraham, "Cast out this handmaiden and her son, for the son of this handmaid will not be heir with my son. He will not be even with Isaac."
We have a Jon Snow situation arising.
Bit of a Jon Snow situation happening here. Catelyn is unhappy.
I wonder if George got that idea from this verse.
Maybe. Yeah, that'd be interesting. So Abraham was uncomfortable with this request because obviously, Ishmael is also his son, so he doesn't want to just cast them out into the desert, I assume it would be. But God said to Abraham, "Don't let it be grievous in your sight because of the boy and because of your handmaid. And all that Sarah says to you, listen to her voice. For from Isaac will your seed be called. Also, of the son of the handmaid will I make a nation, because he is your seed." Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and gave her the child and sent her away. She departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. The water in the bottle was spent, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. She went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about a bow shot away. For she said, "Don't let me see the death of the child." She sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. God heard the voice of the boy. The angel of God called to Hagar out of the sky and said to her, "What ails you, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Get up, lift up the boy, and hold him in your hand, for I will make him a great nation." God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went, filled the bottle with water, and gave the boy drink. God was with the boy, and he grew. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. As he grew up, he became an archer. Hagar brought Ishmael a wife from Egypt. Abimelech and Fikal, I'm going to fuck up that pronunciation too, Phicol, Fickle. The captain of his host spoke to Abraham, saying, "God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son. But according to the kindness that I have done to you, you shall do to me, and to the land in which you have sojourned. And Abraham agreed. Abraham complained to Abimelech because of a water well, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this thing, neither did you tell me, neither did I hear of it until today. Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech. Those two made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Abimelech asks Abraham, what do these 7 lambs mean? I like that even in the Bible, they're like, what does this mean? Abraham said, you shall take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, that it may be a witness to me that I have dug this well. Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because they both swore there. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Abimelech rose up with Phicol, the captain of his host, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and called there on the name of Yahweh, the everlasting God. Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines for many days. And that's the story of the birth of Isaac. So, do you, sir, have any thoughts on anything that you have just heard of my voice?
It's interesting that God says, okay, listen to Sarah. Like, again, like these are difficult for my mind to comprehend. It's like, why the fuck would you cast them out? Didn't Sarah tell? I mean, I know they had some back and forth and she didn't like Hagar for a little bit, but like at the end of the day, Sarah fucking told Abraham, yo, take a swing at my handmaiden.
Yeah, so I think that God might tell him to listen to her, because it's his wife. Just something in there about like making sure that the whole family unit is happy and functioning as well as possible with each other. Not only that, but Hagar, after she conceived a child with Abraham, remember she looked down upon Sarah for being barren and almost like made fun of her for it to a certain extent. So maybe that's another reason that God was kind of like, okay, Sarah isn't necessarily being unreasonable here. Like, yeah, she is the one that offered Hagar up to her husband, but Sarah offered Hagar a great thing in the ability to have a child with her husband at that. And then Hagar goes on to like not be grateful for it and to look down upon her for it, which Sarah has a right to be upset with her about, I think.
She was biting the hand that fed her.
Exactly. Yeah. So that might be another reason that God is like, yeah, listen to Sarah. Hagar has kind of fucked around a little bit here and didn't really handle that situation as well as she could have. So that could be part of the reason. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I could see that. Again, I think maybe the reason that Abraham is, despite doing things like telling the Pharaoh that his wife is actually his sister and lying, he continues to make sacrifices. And like, this is yet another instance of him sacrificing a part for the whole, like the whole family unit. Mm-hmm. And he's willing to sacrifice even his son for maybe even this could be foreshadowing in a sense. He's willing to sacrifice his son to keep the whole of the family in good relationship.
Yeah.
And could be God telling you, do what's right in this, and what's right is looking to the future and sacrificing what you need to now to keep that family alive.
Yeah, and God, or we'll say his conscience, does tell him, even though you should cast them out, I am still going to make a great nation of Ishmael. Like, Ishmael is not going to die in the desert if you do this. I'm still going to allow him to become great if you do this. So it's not like he's telling him, just sentence them to death. He's saying, listen to your wife, get them away from you guys because Sarah's not happy. with this situation, and potentially rightfully so.
Potentially rightfully so.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that they mentioned that Isaac was circumcised at 8 days old specifically. So I looked up what the number 8 represents in the Bible, and it represents new beginning, a new order or creation, and man's true born again event when he is resurrected into his new life. So it's almost like, the circumcision could be just kind of solidifying his covenant with God. Like this is truly when his life begins, when this sacrifice is made through the circumcision. Even though he has no say in the matter at 8 days old. But I think that's why it happened at 8 days old specifically, just because it's reiterating the fact that you have to sacrifice yourself to make this covenant with God.
Okay.
Let's see. Whenever Isaac was weaned, Abraham made a great feast on that day. I think that could be a celebration of the first step in Isaac becoming independent of his mother. Because, like we were talking about in the story of Lot and his daughters and, the Oedipal mother, it's important to release your children out into the world, and that would be the first step in that. You are no longer relying directly on your mother for sustenance. Obviously your parents still need to provide for you once you've been weaned because you're still a baby, but you're no longer directly getting that sustenance from your mother. So you are being separated to a certain degree.
Totally. I can get behind that.
Let's see. So already went over why it might have been why God might have told Abraham, let them go.
Yeah, in a sense, they were his past, like a past that he needed to break off.
Could be, yeah, and I hadn't really thought about that, yeah. Because, before, Sarah was barren, but now God has blessed them with this child, with Isaac. So it's time for you to separate yourself from this deviation away from this singular family unit that you had to partake in the past when Sarah couldn't have kids. Mm-hmm. Now Sarah has had a son for you, so you can separate yourself from this servant and the son that you had with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of tie-ins with just kind of leaving the past behind in these stories. And God mentions, like I said, that he will still make a great nation for or of Ishmael. I can't remember exactly what the specific wording is there. It is fair to assume that because Ishmael is Abraham's son, that he will be a good man because Abraham is a good man. We're the product of our upbringing, even though he's no longer going to be a part of that upbringing specifically. I think that it still could be symbolic of that, this is your son, this is your offspring. So he is going to be good because you are good and he comes from you.
Yeah. And he's good. Abraham is good in one capacity because he makes sacrifices towards the future. And because he's made the proper sacrifices, even fragments of his life, like Ishmael, will have a good future. Even when you make the proper sacrifices in your life, you don't realize perhaps the butterfly effect of how helpful these sacrifices you have made can help everyone in your life, not just the people closest to you, but the people that even you knew for a little bit and have separated from you.
Yeah, maybe getting Hagar and Ishmael away from Sarah, who has this bit of turmoil with Hagar, could be better for them. Could certainly be better for Ishmael, getting him away from this kind of tumultuous relationship that he would have with Sarah, and that his mother already has with Sarah because of that earlier back and forth that they had whenever that situation came to fruition. So it could be beneficial for him to just get away from that so that he doesn't have to deal with all of that turmoil as he is, going through his formative years.
Yeah. Catelyn Stark up in this motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah, send him to the wall. Let's see. And after they're cast out, they run out of food, they run out of water. Hagar just places Ishmael under a bush and then starts weeping, like this baby is going to die. Don't make me see my son die. And God comes to her and gives her a well so that they can survive. I wonder if that's just kind of telling you that you need to, again, just maintain faith in guidance from your conscience and your higher self. Even if you are in a situation that seems completely hopeless, if you just listen and are open to listening to that, you can get through it. You can find a way. It might not be as direct and literal as a well magically being placed in front of you so that you can drink water when you're stranded in the desert, but they were in a hopeless situation, stuck out in the wilderness with nothing left to eat or drink, and in God hearing just her weeping at how hopeless the situation was, he granted them the ability to survive. I don't know how well that interpretation works because it seemed like she had kind of given up at that point, but maybe that's just, again, it alluding to the idea that you need to be open to listening to that little voice in your head that tells you to keep going. Like, you can find a way. Mm-hmm. It's not hopeless. No matter how hopeless it seems, it's not completely hopeless.
Yeah. I'm struggling to come up with something, but yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
So then it says, God was with the boy and he grew. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. As he grew up, he became an archer. So I was watching Jordan Peterson's lecture on this story, and he mentioned that sin is derived from the Greek word hamartia, which means to miss the bullseye. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is just, again, foreshadowing that Ishmael is somebody that's going to be, able to aim correctly at his goals and be a good man. Because, again, he is Abraham's son, and Abraham is a good man, so it would be logical to assume that his son would also grow up to be a good man that is capable of aiming properly in his life. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, he picks a target, he aims at a target, and he hits the mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. And then Abraham complaining to Abimelech because of the water well. First thought was, like, is this the well that was given to Hagar and Ishmael by God?
Yeah.
Like, because Abimelech is totally unaware of what happened here. And it would kind of make sense that Abraham was even unwillingly made to sacrifice something to help his son survive. Maybe even without realizing it, you might make sacrifices for the people that depend on you. I don't know. That's not stated that is the well that was given to them, but could be the case. I'm not sure.
And this is the same Abimelech from previous story.
Yeah. Yeah. Abraham and I imagine Sarah as well are still in the same place, I suppose.
And so how does Abimelech play into the story again? Does he take Hagar and Ishmael into his house? Like, what is his significance in this story?
No, he doesn't have anything to do with Hagar and Abimelech. They, I think it says that they live in the wilderness. Let's see. Yeah, in the wilderness of Paran, or Paran, Paran. A lot of these are going to be difficult for me to pronounce, but no. So Abimelech doesn't come into play directly with Ishmael or Hagar, but he is just still interacting with Abraham at this point, and they've made this covenant to behave in an honest manner with each other.
Okay.
Which I think is why Abraham is not upset with him when this well is taken away. And then Abimelech says, like, I didn't know anything about that, because they made this covenant that they were going to behave honestly with each other. And Abimelech tells him, I did not know anything about this. And so Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, maybe just as a symbol of recognition that, like, okay, I believe you. We made this covenant. I believe you. You know, maybe that's just telling you, like, don't hold grudges with people that genuinely don't know that they are doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Especially coming after that story where maybe it was alluding to the idea that Abimelech did kind of halfway know that what he had done was wrong as far as marrying Sarah. You know, his conscience came to him in his sleep and told him, like, this is somebody's wife and he's a prophet, so give her back. Like property, which again leads me to believe that it wasn't a problem that he took her as property, because he says give her back.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then Abraham plants a tamarisk tree and called on the name of Yahweh. So the tamarisk tree is associated with providing shade and protection. So maybe him planting that tree and calling upon God was just kind of a symbol of recognition of the fact that God is watching over him and protecting him, you know, offering him shade and shelter. Could be. I think this is the first mention of tamarisk trees specifically that we've come across.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had more to say. You know, I don't know. What do you think?
As far as the tree?
Yeah.
That's really all that I could take away from it. I think that, again, it's just, I don't particularly know how it plays into the story here. Like, I don't know why at this specific moment Abraham is recognizing that protection.
Yeah.
You know, in all that's happened, God has I guess kind of been helping him out along the way in telling Abimelech that, like, Sarah is his wife and that he needs to give Sarah back to him. I don't know if that's necessarily protection, or if that was just, you know, God trying to, I don't know, help correct the situation at hand. Dude, we're coming across another couple that are difficult here.
Yeah, a couple of doozies.
Yeah.
What else? Huh? Does the Bible, in the version that you read, do they refer to playing with her son Isaac? So she demanded. Does it mention that Isaac is a slave, or that Ishmael is a slave?
Not in the version that I read, no.
Okay, so this is the birth of Isaac, chapter 21, verse 9. Sarah noticed the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had borne to Abraham playing with her son Isaac. So she demanded of Abraham, drive out that slave and her son. Okay, so Hagar as a slave.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And that is recognized. Yeah, I think it just uses the term handmaid or servant as opposed to slave.
Okay.
Yeah, it does recognize Hagar as their slave, servant, whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't have many takeaways from this one.
Well, so we got a couple of takeaways from it. Not grand ones, but I mean, as far as the symbolism of Ishmael becoming an archer as he grows up. I do think that that's relevant, and I'm glad that I watched that lecture because I do not know anything about the etymology of the words being used. I don't know if I used the word etymology correctly there. Either way, I do think that that's relevant, just that it is constantly reiterating that, like, Ishmael will be fine. Ishmael is going to be great, and that's because I am going to help him. And again, just because we interpret God not as this deity that's watching over everybody, but just something that exists within everybody, it's like, allow him to be guided by his version of me. Like, I've been helping you, I will help him as well, or his version of me will help him as well. So I do like that. It just specifying that, especially specifically, he is going to be capable of properly aiming for greatness, mentioning that he is an archer. You have to aim at shit as an archer. He's going to be able to correctly assess his surroundings and his just day-to-day situations that he's going into, or whatever decisions he may need to make. He's going to be capable of aiming correctly. So I did like that. And then, I don't know, maybe we just get into similar examples that we can relate to within the story. I mean, as far as, has there ever been a point in your life where you have just felt like, this is a fruitless endeavor, I do not know what to do here, I feel like giving up? Similar to Hagar in the desert when they ran out of water. Or I'll say wilderness because I don't know if the word desert was ever mentioned, but they're out away from civilization.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the most recent thought I can think of, and the one that comes to mind immediately, is just being in my previous job. Like, this is a fruitless endeavor. I am not working as hard as I should be. It is not a place that I want to be for the rest of my life. Like, fuck, just let me be done with this. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know where this well is going to come from. But just let me be done with it. And yeah, that's the most recent one. What about you?
Well, before I get into that, what got you through that?
Recognizing that I have a skill outside of that and that I can actually be passionate about, being passionate about something outside of that. Definitely did. Like, I can imagine, had I never started a podcast on a whim with, Jack, had I just continued my life without deciding to do something, deciding to put my interest somewhere productive, had I never done that, I don't know where I would be right now. I would not be here sitting talking to you. I would not be, I might be fucking fuck all. I don't know. Like, I might be in this job still that I fucking despise. And if I was there, like, good God. So it was, the well for me, I suppose, was picking something of interest and pushing towards it. And luckily there's a way to make that monetizable and, like, a business out of and a living out of.
Yeah.
But had I not just decided to do something, I would be in the desert still with no well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm extremely glad that you were able to discover that, and get yourself to a point of just higher fulfillment. I'm super happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. I'm prone to negative emotion, very high in trait neuroticism. So there have been plenty times in my life where I've just felt like I'm at the end of my rope and just like, what the fuck am I going to do? Most recently, pardon, just a lot of shit going on in my life, without going into too much detail. Exploring a relationship that ultimately did not end up coming to fruition. And at the same time, a serious medical issue coming up in my family, combined with just, general stress that everybody experiences day to day. I mean, like you mentioned, the job. I certainly don't hate my job. It's fulfilling to me, and I love the people that I work with. But it can be very mentally taxing at times, just people depending on me as far as clients go, and oftentimes almost getting a little bit of imposter syndrome,
Oh, yeah.
where I just feel like I don't feel like I am in a position to be helping these people as much as they need me to, even though I know I'm qualified to do so and I am capable of doing it. It's just a lot of the time, if a client doesn't hit their goals, I feel partially responsible for that. Even if I've done everything in my power to help them, it's like, fuck, I guess it wasn't enough. And it's important to separate your responsibility from their responsibility. Some people are not putting in the work, just generally speaking. And I don't mean to, when I say that, I'm not talking about my clients, I just mean generally speaking, if you're trying to help somebody, they might not be doing everything in their power to help themselves. So it is very important to recognize when you are in fact doing everything in your power to help somebody, even if they end up not reaching their goals that you are trying to help them reach. If you did everything that you were supposed to and they still didn't reach their goals, don't kick yourself over it, But just recent situations, the relationship thing, the family medical issue, Tex, all of that together very recently, I mean, less than a week ago, had me just at the end of my rope. And what ultimately got me through that was just, it was a combination of a few things. First of all, recognizing the value of the relationships that I do have with friends, the night that I was feeling probably the worst that I have been since all of this just kind of came up. I just hopped online and started talking to a few of my friends that I've known for a while, like these are my friends, but just the conversation that I had with them that night made it very clear to me that like these people care about me. They genuinely want the best for me. They want me to be happy and fulfilled. And I would say that I just recognized that more deeply than I had taken the time to do so up until that point, after having that conversation. And I said so at the end of that conversation, it was just like, I appreciate the fuck out of you guys, genuinely. And then you came over and we talked, and I appreciate our relationship very much, So that I would say was my main in that scenario, just take stock of what you do have. It's important to appreciate what you do have at your disposal, as opposed to focusing on the things that are going wrong and making you feel helpless. Focus on what you do have as a source of help, and focus on moving forward, which, I mean, we've talked about in the last few episodes. It's important to just keep moving forward and not look back. And that doesn't relate to every single situation that I'm, dealing with at the moment, but certainly with the romantic relationship, it's like, don't look back on that. It didn't work out, whatever. What are you going to do? You're just going to keep thinking about that and how much it sucks, or are you just going to keep pushing?
Yeah. You going to turn into salt or not?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to be a pillar of salt.
No.
I'd prefer to keep it pushing. So that was my main source of just, I guess, inspiration to keep moving forward.
What's just crazy, crazy that this just all hits you at once too, pretty much. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then this flood is happening to you right now.
When it rains, it pours.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very funny that it all fucking happened as soon as we did the Noah episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, and honestly, that helped a little bit. Just the fact that was on my mind, thinking about just the analogy of the flood. Mm. Your life can be uprooted in an instant. Mm. That's what I said when we were doing that episode. You need to be prepared for that to happen. That's when you figure out what you're made of. Like, what are you going to do? You can't just allow yourself to be consumed by those floodwaters and drown. Like, you have to just have that ark ready to keep you afloat. And even if you have, to an extent, like, built that ark, you might not, I don't know, I'm trying to like make an analogy here off the top of my head, but it's important to just know that you have that ark at your disposal. Yeah. Recognize that. Like, I have this support system around me, like you and the people that I've met through fucking streaming. Even though a lot of people would look at like those online friendships as being less valuable than somebody that you're friends with in person, which I absolutely do not think is the case. These people are genuinely there for me. Mm-hmm. So focus on that. Don't focus on these people that have proven like they're not here for you. Who cares if they're gone? If somebody comes into your life and you think that they are going to, benefit you or just be there for you or improve your current situation, and it turns out that that's not the case, don't focus so heavily on that. Focus on the people that are there for you. Focus on the people that genuinely do care about you. That'll help you get through it. Just focus on the positives, even though they might be few and far between. You might have like fucking one, but focusing on that one thing, even if it's just your capability to like pick yourself up and keep going, is going to be a lot more beneficial to you than focusing on what's going wrong. 100%.
I think there's something to be said for these online relationships. Like, arguably, it is more clear that like you can't really do anything for these people that are online. Like, yet they still, and when I say, what? Okay.
It's so zoomed in. Jesus Christ. Okay. So, technical difficulties. I fucking hate technology 90% of the time. So, online friendships. Yeah. You were saying...
There's a significant value in online friendships, I think, in the fact that, like, necessarily you can't do anything for them and they can't necessarily do anything for you, but the universal connection between humans is still very much prominent in these online relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree that it is almost, in a way, a little bit more genuine, just because it's like you can't offer anything tangible to these people like nearly as easily as you can to somebody that, say, lives in the same city as you. Mm-hmm. Literally all you can really offer them is conversation. Yeah. Most of the time. But
it shows the value in converse. Like it kind of breaks down all these other like false idols, like false senses of a good relationship, because you have none of that else. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that was my main driving force, and just kind of getting through that situation specifically. That and the other stuff we talked about, just like thinking about my dad and grandpa and stuff like that. It's like, how would they handle this? What would they think of me if I handled it in X way? Right. Just I think having good role models is also very, very important in that regard. You know, having somebody that you can almost kind of compare yourself to. I mean, to a healthy degree. Obviously, you shouldn't be constantly comparing yourself to other people, but if you have somebody that you genuinely admire and see as a good person, I think it's perfectly reasonable for you to just look at them as almost both a source of inspiration and an example of just how you should conduct yourself. And again, within reason, you need to be your own person. But if there's somebody whose opinion you genuinely value, or somebody whose behavior you genuinely admire and think of as being good, I don't think that there's anything wrong with thinking, you know, what would they do in this situation?
Yeah, you think like Uncle Ron or someone, you know, I'm just thinking of random names. I do have an Uncle Ron, actually. Kind of. But you think of that, it's like, what would he do? It's like, what would Uncle Ron do in this situation? It's like it's almost like we are giving credence to the idea that they have God within them. Like, in order for us to think, okay, what would Uncle Ron do? We have to understand and establish that they are moral people. Where do they get that from? You know, someone that they looked up to before then, and then if you follow that chain all the way up, it ends at, you know, God, essentially.
Yeah. Well, how do you mean where, you mean just eventually their conscience would come into play there? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, if they're, if they are seeing somebody as valuable, you know, in that regard, you know, as just an example of good behavior, you would likely assume that they have a healthy relationship with their conscience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's...
That was a doozy of a pickle, wasn't it?
Oh my God, from start to finish, between the confusing stories and then this fucking bullshit. Thanks a lot, SanDisk. Y'all are great. I blame the Mac computer.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Because I hate them.
Yeah, I agree.
What? No right click. No fucking right click. Really? Fuck you.
I am a big proponent of Windows over Mac.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be using this thing if I didn't just have it handed down to me.
Yeah. Sponsored by Prime, Mac, and SanDisk.
All three. Home of the shittiest boxers, shittiest memory, and shittiest technology as far as computing goes. God. We have terrible sponsors.
Oh, shit. We need the, what's that one? What's the one church that goes around saying God hates fags?
Oh,
the Southern Methodist or...
Westboro Baptist.
Westboro Baptist. This episode was sponsored by Westboro Baptist.
This episode was brought to you by Westboro Baptist Church. Go protest at your local Planned Parenthood today. Jesus. I love the story, or not even a story, there's fucking pictures. Somebody bought a house across the street from like their main headquarters, and it was clapboard, so they painted each clapboard in like a rainbow flag. So they have just this big fucking gay pride rainbow house across the street, all of these homophobes. They have to look at that constantly. I wonder if that's still there. I hope it is.
I hope so too. I'm like, even if I'm not necessarily a proponent of that whole movement, I would still paint my house in a rainbow flag color across from there.
Just to fuck with them, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Just leave fucking people alone, man. Why do you give a shit?
Right. Take the thorn out of your own eye first.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, have a good rest of your Thursday, everybody, or whatever day you may be watching this episode. We appreciate you sticking around for so long. If you did, sorry that you had to spend the last couple of minutes only looking at me.
See ya.
Laters.